Back in February, I found myself face to face with a rhino about to have its horn cut off. Rhino horns have been a talk of great controversy for a long time now, and with the rising demand, the population of rhinos is rapidly decreasing. Poachers are risking it all to kill rhinos and get their hands on a horn. So why am I filming a rhino about to have its horn removed? It's a long story, and a tough one for me to tell. But after witnessing firsthand the events that happened before my eyes in South Africa, I knew it was a story that had to be told. So let me take you back to the beginning when myself and the Karmagawa team first landed in Johannesburg. We set out the next morning to our first stop in Zululand, an area east of Johannesburg known for its big open plains full of wildlife. After a couple of hours, we touched down in Zululand, where we set off by car to Minyani, a private reserve where they focus their efforts on animal conservation. Okay. Look at them. This is beautiful. We went out for a game drive to check the surrounding landscapes and to catch our first African sunset. We managed to see some zebras and giraffes on our way back to camp. That night things started to get real when we received a briefing over dinner on what the next day would look like. I went to bed kind of nervous knowing what we were going to be witnessing the next day and the fact that I was going to be documenting it. The next morning we packed up and went out into the reserve in search for a rhino. I never understood why someone would want to kill one of these sacred animals until I learned that a rhino horn can sell on the black market for upwards of $500,000 US. Due to the countless rhino deaths over the last few decades, conservationists have been trying various methods to stop poachers from killing the rhino. But when it comes down to it, if the horn is left on the rhino, the odds of it being killed are far greater than without the horn. This has left many conservationists with no other option than to remove the horn themselves. This was the morning we set off to document the operation firsthand.
The reason why we do horning, I think it's important you know why we do it. We're not doing it for guest entertainment. It's not so that you guys can enjoy the experience. It's to prevent rhino poaching. We lost a lot of rhino historically. From 2014, we suddenly lost our first rhino, and that year we lost 8. The year thereafter, we lost another 6. And then 2016, we lost another 2. That's when we sat down and said, right guys, we need to make a decision.
Right now, there are roughly 5,000 rhinos remaining, and since 2013, roughly 1,000 have been killed each year. If you do the math, that doesn't give us much time until rhinos will be gone forever.
We're at the point now that if we don't do anything now, we'll lose both elephants and rhinos within 10 years.
The rhino would be tranquilized from a helicopter and tracked until sedated before starting the operation.
Let's rather do horn because it does make it less attractive to poachers. In other words, increased risk of getting caught and very little reward.
So it's an emergency, it's a crisis, it's a war.
So here's the deal. Rhino horns are made up of keratin, the same stuff your hair and fingernails are made up of. Poachers will go in and cut off as much of the horn as possible, usually killing the rhino or severely dismembering its face. The footage you're about to see can be disturbing. This is a rhino after a poacher got to it, and to me a clear indicator why people are devoting their lives to help protect these animals. Rhino conservationists cut safely above the growth plate, unaffecting the rhino's health and leaving a stump that grows back in 2 to 3 years. And because rhinos have no natural predators besides poachers, living without a horn does not make them more vulnerable out in the wild.
I just knew there was an injustice that I had the skills to assist in that injustice. Similar to the way that 9/11 hit me. Seeing something, an animal like a rhino with its face cut off, die a miserable death, I just wasn't okay with that. And so I just kind of decided, if you're passionate about something that it hurts in your stomach, then you need to go after it. And so that's what I did.
In no time, the rhino was back up on its feet and reunited with its mother. As we left, it was reassuring to know our rhino friend would be safer from the threat of poachers out in the wild. We spent the next couple days learning about the other animal conservation work being done in Zululand before heading out to our next destination. is one of 2 private reserves VetPaw protects year-round, day and night. A landmass spanning over 40,000 hectares, and because of VetPaw's active duty here, it is known to be full of wildlife, which of course inevitably brings in the attention of poachers.
Our property sits in a really unique location in Africa. We've got a lot of borders that are close by, and that means they can come in, poach the animal, and take off across a border and escape out of this jurisdiction. And so being here, we've been able to stop that from happening. We've never had a rhino or an elephant poached under our watch in 5 years, which we're extremely proud of. But the other thing that you have to watch out for is, as we step up our game, so do poachers. So we always have to be on the lookout. And the goal here is to create one of the largest rhino sanctuaries in Africa, and we hope to do that one day.
VetPaw stands for Veterans Empowered to Protect African Wildlife.
We utilize the skills of post-9/11 veterans who've served in Iraq or Afghanistan and other places throughout the world to empower park rangers and to train them in field tactics that we use in the military, and then they can then apply those to conservation and counter-poaching operations.
We got to spend an evening out on the shooting range with the crew to see them train firsthand. Although these guys do train with guns, they rarely ever have to use them. Something they use far more often in this war are dogs. This guy's name is Henry. He trains dogs in the battle of anti-poaching.
My partner against crime is Arrow. He's a 3-year-old German Shepherd. Arrow helps tremendously in the fight against poaching. His job is to track and find suspects.
Arrow is especially useful when it comes to tracking at night. Because of this, the crew is able to track poachers without using light and giving up their position. Yeah! Nice! VetPaw also takes care of several lions and a leopard that were all rescued at a young age. We got to go into their enclosure and feed them. A pretty wild moment that I'll never forget. We spent our last evening trying to track down some elephants. Just as the sun was about to set, we spotted a few off in the distance.
Yeah. That's the lions. Are they close?
Is it gonna
That's
though?
extremely close. Yeah.
On our last night, we were invited out on a night mission with the crew. Most poaching happens at night because poachers can operate unseen under the radar. So VetPaw regularly goes out and patrols, especially on a new moon when it's the darkest out.
You guys are the first people we've ever taken that are not a part of that call.
I got you loud and clear. Tell me.
On our drive out, we learned something completely new none of us had heard before.
It's been proven that Al-Shabaab and Boko Haram, which are...
That this was not just a battle between conservationists and poachers, but terrorists as well. We learned that poaching funds many terrorist organizations around the world.
It's well documented that poaching funds terrorism and terrorist cells all throughout Africa. Even in Al-Shabaab, it's reported that approximately 40% of their operational costs and funding comes through poaching.
So we just made it to our first location. We're parking the cars and we're gonna climb this mountain and scout from there.
Poaching right now is at the extreme level. I mean, they're poisoning, they're using IEDs in some places, improvised explosive devices, high caliber assault rifles, tranquilizers even, to put the animal down so that you can't hear gunshots.
From the observation point, we set off to the border of the property where one of the crew spotted some fresh spoor. It's pretty insane watching these guys do what they do firsthand. Like, there's absolutely no way I would be able to find footsteps in the middle of nowhere.
We've got fresh spoor, which is a footprint.
This is within probably an hour
We followed the footprints to a common pathway animals take in that area, which led us to a snare trap that was set up within the past couple of hours. A simple yet very effective and deadly trap that squeezes tighter on the animal as it tries to pull itself out. So it looks like it's the end of the night. We've been out for a couple hours. We've managed to find a snare trap that was set up within the past 2 hours. Yeah, it's a successful night. We managed to gather one more snare and potentially save one more animal's life. We're gonna call it a night and head back to base camp. Before we knew it, we were looking at our last sunrise in Africa. Jacob, Matt, and I went out on our last game drive to say goodbye to this magical place.
Matt, everybody, I think that we all had like this amazing time, like just learning about stuff and seeing all the work that you're doing. And I know like what you're doing, it's like a thankless job, you know, I mean, every single day, like you're fighting the good fight, and not many people give you props that you deserve. All talk aside, I mean, you guys need money and you need better equipment. So I know like I donated the 75,000, but I'm gonna donate 100,000 more.
Thank you so much, man.
After seeing these animals firsthand and the unseen effort and dedication Vetpaw and their team were investing, it made me grow a new sense of respect and understanding towards the battle of anti-poaching. The reason I made this video was to raise awareness, and the reason I'm sharing it with you is because I believe we have the power to make a historic impact in the war against poaching. The harsh reality is we have reached a crucial time in history. Helpless animals are under the urgent threat of being eradicated from our planet. And depending on what we do or don't do, we can lose rhinos in the next decade. By sharing this video, you can help raise awareness towards this serious issue. And by donating, you can go a step further to help organizations like Vetpaw expand and advance in the war against poaching.